Okay, welcome everyone and greetings. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Stacy Aquero and I am the Director of Application Review and Academic Partnerships with the Undergraduate Admissions Office at Stony Brook. I'm joined by Amanda Mills, one of our staff members at Stony Brook. She's behind the scenes answering any of your questions that you may want to put in our Q&A. Of course, today we are going to talk about applying to Stony Brook. I know that there are a variety of different students, parents, supporters in the audience at different levels. Some of you may be juniors and even younger and really starting to think about your college experience. And some of you may be seniors who still need to apply or still need to submit the application, but kind of are waiting. So we are going to talk in broad generalizations. I know that many of you submitted questions ahead of time, many which are about what do we look for in an applicant, which we will go over. Some that were very more pointed specifically towards a unique scenario. We definitely recommend emailing us and we'll go through how to contact us specifically later. But as we're talking about applying to Stony Brook, and really in college in general, we definitely ask you to kind of pause for a moment and hopefully do some of the research behind why you are applying to Stony Brook. Many people um, oftentimes apply to schools because they've either heard of the name, it may be local, it may be part of the SUNY system, but it's really important to do your research to any schools that you're applying to, including Stony Brook. Stony Brook, we are a large public research university and part of the State University of New York, um, which of course is the largest higher education system in the United States, the SUNY system. And we are the flagship of that SUNY system. So oftentimes that is a great reason and why many students do consider applying to Stony Brook, our academic reputation and ranking, and the fact that we're part of SUNY and um, that flagship. But you want to think about the things that are important to you. And if Stony Brook matches those factors that are important to you, things like the location of Stony Brook in a very suburban residential community, an hour outside of New York City. Our size, we're a mid to larger size university with over 25,000 students. So some of our class sizes may be over 100 students, although about 50% of our classes are under 50 students. Keeping in mind the climate, we are a four-season northeastern town, so we will see all sorts of climate throughout the academic year. Housing options and opportunities. We are again in a very residential community. We do offer housing for students, which can be your typical dorm as well as you get older, apartment style. But we are in a residential community. You want to think of that location versus being in a city or being more rural. Of course, cost is a major factor as to why students apply. And when you're looking to apply, things like looking at overall cost of tuition and room and board, typical scholarships, and then also knowing that U.S. citizens and permanent residents can apply for federal and or state aid if you're a New York State resident. Looking at academic offerings and career goals, while Stony Brook offers a wide variety of majors, over 200 academic majors, we don't offer everything. So if there's something very specific that you're looking for that we don't offer, that oftentimes is a trigger not to attend somewhere. Other things that we think people apply to Stony Brook are in terms of the research opportunities that we have. We are a top tier research university, and research capabilities for students within their first year are available. So it makes it a great reason to consider Stony Brook if research is something that is part of your interest in your college career. The activities and clubs that you get to be involved in, also great reasons why to consider Stony Brook, over 500 clubs and activities to be involved in. Safety, very very safe suburban community that Stony Brook is housed in. And of course, we know that that is often important. There are many other factors to consider, and really, I tell students if you're not in your senior year at this point in time, the what is your why? These are the times now that you're starting to think about all of the things that are important to you. Because what's important to you isn't necessarily important to your friend or your school counselor or other supporters. Starting to think about all of these types of things that are important to you to then help you understand, is applying to Stony Brook the right fit for me, and helping you narrow down other schools that you're interested in. Once you know that Stony Brook has checked off many of these things on your lists, of course, applying to Stony Brook then is a no-brainer. I will also say that not every school, even Stony Brook, is going to have every single thing on your list. So you also have to think about what's most important, and what are some, like, I hope it has, but if it doesn't, it won't deter me from going to that place. So the other things to think about as you're thinking about applying to Stony Brook are, what are some of the things that we look at for a student? And we do a holistic review of an application, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But to give you a sense of our class profile from 2025, our academic side of the house, we saw what we call our middle 50% of our applicants in the 92 to 98 high school GPA range on a 100-point scale, or that equates to about a 3.7 to a 4.0. We are test optional, but those who have submitted test scores between about a 1350 to 1470 SAT or 30 to 34 ACT. Last year, we saw over 64,000 applications, and accepted about 48% of those applications. 48% of those applications had applied early action, and then we admitted nearly 60% of those early action students. So again, for my juniors who are thinking about that, we're going to go through the timeline for early action, which is November 1st, but just to kind of give you a sense. Some honors statistics, we're going to talk specifically about our honors programs, but we have about 120 in our Women in Science and Engineering program, 86 in our honors college, 150 in university scholars, and 42 in our Simon STEM program. That's for this past fall. So really, now that you have a sense of, this is definitely one of my options, this is the place for me, what you want to do is start to think about applying. And if I have some seniors who are still maybe on the fence about applying or didn't apply early action, there is still time to apply, and we are going to go through deadlines. But you want to make sure you get your application in. For my juniors and sophomores, this is going to be things to remember kind of for the summertime, where you want to take some first steps to applying. I generally recommend blocking off some time to work on your application over multiple days and weeks, usually in a 1 to 2 hour time block. Filling out something like the Common Application or the SUNY application, people always are nervous about it, scared about it, feel overwhelmed or intimidated by it. 90% of that application is good old-fashioned quote unquote like basic data gathering information. You have to input your name and your parents' information and your address and the name of your school. And it's just time consuming. It is not tons and tons of information that you don't have. Um, you will have to have a list of your activities. So I often say, make sure you kind of write that out ahead of time. The activities you've attended, the years that you've attended them, other responsibilities that you've had. You should also come to this with the list of schools you want to apply to, because that's when some of the additional information comes in. So you're going to add different schools to your application that you want to apply to, like Stony Brook and other schools, and then they're going to ask more specific questions. So you can't just sort of start your application and think, okay, in 15 minutes, I'm going to have that be done. And you probably aren't going to do it all in one block because it is going to be more um, tedious information. Sometimes you're even going to need to know some information from your parents, or you're going to have to look up other information. So definitely block off a couple of days in those chunks of time. You're going to need to know the names of those you've asked to provide a letter of reference for. And again, for maybe my juniors, this spring is going to be the time where you're going to think about who you want to ask for letters of references. And I generally say before you leave your junior year, start asking those teachers for letters so they can think about what they want. You're going to need to list all your senior year courses in your application. So if for some reason you don't, again, have that in front of you, you need to make sure you're gathering all of that. Um, you're going to have to list information if you've attended a summer program for credit or no credit. There's space where you can put information about like dual enrollment credit and colleges you've attended. So maybe you've done our ACE program through your high school, which is great, and you can list that. But if you've done a summer program not for credit, you really want to list that in your activities, because if you list it as part of a university you've attended, then schools are going to request a transcript that you don't have because there wasn't any credit. It's going to ask for tests, dates of exams. So you're going to have to kind of fill out that information, SAT, ACT, even AP exams you can fill in. So you kind of need to have all of this information as you're ready to sit down. Which is why I also say gathering this ahead of time and keeping it in some kind of organizational system really is going to be to your benefit. And for all of my parents out there, of course, we want our student to be able to do this, but we know that you're going to help in that organizational system. We know that some of those students who are not ready to apply yet in the junior and sophomore years, this is your time to now start making these organizational systems. Now, I'm a spreadsheet person, and my daughter, the math major, is also a spreadsheet person. Yet when I gave her the sample of my spreadsheet that I recommended, she wanted nothing to do with that. So use the organizational system that works for you. But know that you are going to have multiple accounts and username and passwords for those accounts. So you probably all already have a College Board account if you've taken the PSAT, the SAT, any AP courses. Of course, if you've taken the ACT, you have an account. Any other exams. If you've already started application systems like the Common Application, SUNY application, Coalition application, all have different usernames and passwords and ID numbers. Then when you start applying to schools, those applications get sent to each school, like Stony Brook, and you have a Stony Brook username and password and ID. And each school is going to have different ones. You're going to get portal access with where you're going to need those usernames and passwords and IDs to identify yourself. Each school is also going to have different dates and deadlines for submission, for for a variety of different deadlines for application submission, if it's different for document submission. So you really want to kind of keep track. So I'm again not only a spreadsheet person, but a multi-tab spreadsheet person. I'm also a label person within my email system. So if you haven't already heard this, which I'm sure your school counselors have told you, to create one email to use to apply to all colleges and applications. It helps keep all of this organized. If you create labels, and folders per college and per system, like Common Application, it also helps make things um, easily located when you need to have that information. A few tips we, of course, tell students is one, when you're creating that email, we don't recommend using your high school email address. High schools often have many blockers to websites and emails, and oftentimes university emails that are sent to high school email addresses get blocked, therefore aren't delivered, and you don't know that you're missing an item or that you missed a deadline of some sort. So it's really important to consider that. The other thing is you probably already have a College Board account with an email attached to it that's probably your school account. When you send your SAT scores, if you are going to send them, oftentimes those don't match because now you have different email addresses. So it's important to connect with each admissions office to make sure that those kinds of things are matching because of different addresses. That goes the same things with like names. So if you have a nickname or a different spelling of your name, or you use your middle name, or you're putting a preferred name versus your legal name that's on your transcripts, you definitely want to make sure that things are connecting. At Stony Brook, we do um, ask for students for their preferred name as well as their legal name. So we will use preferred name in our communication, but we're looking for um, what your legal name is to match other documents. So part of the application is at Stony Brook to select a major. And in fact, at Stony Brook, we allow students to choose a first choice major as well as a second choice major. And I like to just spend a quick minute on how to choose a major. The one thing I always say in the beginning is that students can choose undecided if they really do not know. But choosing a major, if you don't know, is really something to consider about what subjects do you like to study in school? What subjects do you get good grades at in school? Um, are there subjects that you don't do well in where you struggle to get good grades? I often use the example um, of biology and pre-med. At Stony Brook, um, many of our students have an interest in pre-med. Many students think they have to be biology majors to have that career goal to be pre-med. But to be pre-med, you can actually be any major you want. But you still have to take prerequisites that are in the sciences, including biology and math, and other social sciences. But if you struggle in certain science courses, then being a biology major might not be the best route, but it doesn't mean that you still couldn't be pre-med. So things to really consider. You also want to consider things that you like and don't like outside of the classroom to help shape some of those career goals. Realize that it's okay to change your mind, and when you come to college, you are going to be exposed to academic programs and careers that you've never heard of. We get a lot of change of major requests throughout the application process because all of a sudden they learned about something they didn't know about and now want to change their major. believe it or not, that's going to happen really once you start school. So don't focus um, so much on it in the application process unless you really know what you want. Because it's okay to be undecided or to change your mind once you're here. Um, at Stony Brook, you can double major, you can add a minor. The double major won't come until after you've enrolled. Um, you can also consider shadowing uh, professionals for a little bit to see if that is a good career move. You'll have those opportunities at our career center once you're here, and things like internships as well. Okay, so we talked a little bit about our organizational system, and now you are really ready to apply. Hopefully, my seniors have already done some of this, but if not, again, it's okay. There's still time. For my juniors, this is stuff you're going to do over the summer. For one, you need to create an account, either with the Common application, the SUNY application, or the Coalition application. Again, you're going to need to record that username and password in your organizational system. You're going to be mindful of that email address. Once you create that, you're going to also really want to make sure you're checking your spam account and adding all of the schools as well as the system you use to your safe senders lists. You're going to want to use, again, your legal name on all of those documents. Um, Input your information and select your schools for additional school-specific questions, as well as any essays that they may need. So now let's talk specifically about Stony Brook. You've applied online, you've selected Stony Brook. Stony Brook also requires an essay. We use the common application, common application essay prompts, which includes an essay of your own choice. So they have multiple selections as well as an essay of your own choice. You'll need to have your high school transcript sent. If I have any transfer students on here, um, your college transcripts also need to be sent, but you'll have to have your high school transcript sent. For any international students that I may have on here, you are not waiting until any predicted grades or final grades. All of your transcripts from grade 9, 10, and 11 have to be sent with the application by the deadline. A letter of reference, it really needs to be from someone who can speak to your character. So that's a school counselor, a teacher, a coach, um, a religious affiliate, an advisor to a club. Um, Test scores are optional, which means SAT or ACT scores are optional, not other test scores. So again, my international folks, test scores are not A levels, IB. That's all part of your transcripts, your academic records. But we are SAT, ACT optional. So that is your choice to send it. When you are filling out the application, it is going to ask you if you want to submit your test scores. If you say yes, we will not review the application until those SAT or ACT scores are sent. If you apply and then are waiting for test scores and now realize after you've received the test scores you don't want to send that in, it's too late. So really think about that when you are filling out the application. For my international folks, English proficiency is required unless you're from an English-speaking high school or English-speaking country or English-speaking curriculum. So again, I mentioned the Common Application personal essay, but you should also be prepared if applying to honors programs that we have honors programs essays. When writing the essay, you should be prepared to write several drafts. You should really choose a topic that highlights who you are. We have on our YouTube admissions page a college essay session from July that we highly recommend that you listen, that will help give you some information about writing your college essay. And again, that letter from either a counselor, teacher, or someone who can speak to your character. So at Stony Brook, we have a number of honors programs. The Honors College, which is a 4-year academic-based honors college program with curriculum tied to our honors college. Any student um, in any major can be a part of the honors college. Our University Scholars Program is based more on leadership and community involvement. And our Women in Science and Engineering is for female identifying students who have majors in science and engineering, and they will have more opportunities for research and mentorship. We also have a Scholars for Medicine program and a Scholars for Dental Medicine program. These are programs with guaranteed admission into the medical school and dental school. They are not shortened programs. They are still 4 undergraduate years and then your 4 years of medical school or 3 years of dental medical school. The Scholars for Med accepts about 10 students a year. The dental med program accepts 2 to 4 students each year. Um, we have some additional honors opportunities with our academic programs that are typically invite only. We also have a Simon STEM Scholars Program. This is for students who are looking to achieve the highest degree in a STEM field. So you're interested in majoring in STEM and then pursuing a PhD and have a commitment to supporting diversity in the STEM fields. These programs are fully merit-based scholarship funding, and they're cohort-based programs in terms of research opportunities. There is a separate application with 3 short essay responses. For the fall 26 semester, this application was due with our early action application of November 1st. There was a short extension of that. But for any of my juniors who are interested, this application, will open in August when our application opens. And if interested, you will have until November 1 of 2026 to apply for 27. Some other programs for our first year applicants. We have a SUNY Top 10% promise. That's throughout entire SUNY. If you are in a specific high school that participates in the Top 10% promise, you don't have to fill out an application through specific to Stony Brook. You can fill out a SUNY application for the top 10%. Your school can help guide you if you are in the top 10% of your application of your graduating class. Each year, SUNY has, for the past 3 years, has done a free application week. This year, it was October 20th to November 3rd. They will likely announce for next year when that is over the summer, but you can kind of expect it to be around those dates as well. That allows students from anywhere to apply as a first year or transfer student with a SUNY or common application to up to 5 SUNY schools. Other opportunities we have for students, admitted first year students, they can spend their first semester in one of our locations in Italy, China, or Korea. And if admitted, you would have opportunities to receive more information and apply to those programs. So let's talk specifically about deadlines versus due dates. I know I jumped a little bit around because I want to make sure I'm addressing all audiences here as we have some seniors as well as some juniors. So for my juniors who are, again, starting early and starting to think about all of this, your application for fall 27 will be available August 1st. Common App and SUNY application opens, and you will have an early action deadline of November 1st. However, for Stony Brook, we have a regular decision deadline of January 15th. So that means all of my seniors who are still thinking about applying, you're going to shut the computer or shut the Zoom session and go right onto your SUNY or Common App and be able to hit submit now because we are still accepting till January 15th. When we talk about application deadline, this is a completion deadline. So if you see the other two darker red columns. Documents are also due January 15th. Um, so this deadline is not like I can submit my assignment and then it's done. Everything has to be submitted by January 15th. If you look, you'll receive portal access 5 days after that. So if you are waiting till January 15th to just submit your application, you are really kind of too late because you have to have everything else submitted. Your essay, your letter of reference, your high school transcripts, if you're going to submit your test scores. So please make sure you are doing it before the January 15th deadline. I know things are really crazy um, with winter concerts and sports. Um, and so we know realistically that maybe you're going to wait till the holiday break, but do not wait past that. Get it in. Um, For those who are applying regular decision, we will have a decision to you by March 31st. Everyone has until May 1 to make a decision. Those early action applicants, if anyone who's on the call who's already applied early action, you will have a decision by January 31st. Early action just means that you'll have that decision earlier. You do not have to make a commitment until May 1. We do prioritize our honors, our engineering, and our creative writing in our early action pool. And that's where you saw earlier about 60% of our class is from that early action pool. So it doesn't mean that we haven't closed off any programs. You can still apply to all of them, but they do become on more of a space basis after that. So now that you've submitted your application, what happens next? You're going to receive a confirmation email from Stony Brook. Can take up to 1 to 5 days, depending on technology. As great as it is sometimes has its own quirks. You're going to receive access to a portal called Start SBU. It will have a checklist of missing items, transcripts, essays, letters of reference, test scores, honors items. You sometimes need to allow 1 to 2 weeks for updates to be made. I'll go back to that deadline. If you are submitting test scores, College Board will say on their website they take anywhere from 7 to 10 days to send out materials. So if it's due by January 15th, you need to make sure 7 to 10 business days ahead of time that is requested. Same thing with your high school. Some high schools will have strict guidelines that they need a certain number of business days to process sending your transcript. So you want to make sure you have that so it's in no later than that deadline. Um, Go back to your organizational system, start inputting some of your usernames and passwords that you have from your portal. And your decision release schedule will be listed in the portal, depending on how, again, you have applied. So that brings me to the end of our presentation. I know that there have been some questions going on. If there are very specific pointed questions, specific either to your application or how you need to apply, we encourage calling or emailing us. Of course, some of these questions are way more generic for us to then talk specifically about, individual questions. Um, I know that there were also some submitted questions ahead of time, so I'm just going to go through a few of those, but we're going to keep it open for just a little bit for you to fill out any last minute questions before we end the presentation. I see quickly here a question about how do I apply to honors, and I did skip over that. Once you apply to Stony Brook, you will have in that portal a form to complete to apply to the honors programs as well as submit the required essays for those honors programs. There was a couple of questions that came through pre-submitted. about how we review applications. We do review applications in a holistic manner. We review applications, that means not just by grades and test scores if submitted, but we look at all factors, including your essay, your letter of reference, your activities, um, and truly read every single application. Um, there was a question before about engineering, and should you apply directly to engineering? And the answer would absolutely be yes. You would apply directly to the program you're interested in, because while students can change majors, engineering is probably our most competitive, and uh, we don't always have space for programs to change majors into, and there will often be a review, so you definitely want to do that. Um, there were some questions about scholarships. So Stony Brook does offer merit scholarships for incoming freshmen, whether you're international, in-state, out-of-state, all students may qualify for scholarships, and they would be sent for with an acceptance letter. Um, a question about, can you still apply to the honors program and get a regular decision, but the rest of your application early action? Absolutely. So your honors application is separate from your regular application. So you will get a decision to the university separate from your honors program. Someone asked a question about what the honors programs are for. They are highly selective programs for students who want either additional academic or leadership experiences. We would highly encourage you to definitely do your research on our honors programs to see if that's something that would be of interest to you. A question about our decisions made on a rolling basis. No, we do not make decisions on a rolling basis. Our early action applicants are notified by the end of January, and our regular decisions are notified by the end of March. We will do a few releases in between, but they are not rolling, typically about once a month. Question about pre-med, that you can kind of major in anything you want as long as you're taking prereqs. Is there still a required number of credits? Yes, absolutely. So all students, typically are full-time. You still have general education requirements. There's pre-med requirements, and whatever major you have, there's still requirements. So there's still a number of courses you have to take. So you will have advisors that will go through all of that with you, and uh, and work through that each semester with you. A question about that you don't have an English degree. You don't have to have an English degree to apply if you're an international student, but you do have to have English proficiency. And our English proficiency score requirements are on our website. I think we're probably just nearly out of time. I really thank so many of you for your questions, for your interest today. And I know that I have many of you who have already applied to Stony Brook and are waiting anxiously for your answers. Please know at this point in time, we have almost 50,000 applications. We are reading through them on the daily. So if you have everything in, we often just recommend checking your portal every now and then to make sure there's nothing that has been added to your checklist. But otherwise, you just have to sit back patiently and wait to hear from us. If there are other questions, please do email us at enroll, and we thank you again so much uh, for joining us today. Have a great evening.